One more day. That's all we'll have to wait until we know who the next quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts is going to be. It's going to be a crazy one, so let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast, presented by Fan Nation on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, and I'm joined here by my fellow writer and co-host at HorseshoeHuddle.com, Drake Wally. I'm live here in Kansas City, made the trek out here, literally got to my hotel about 45 minutes from now, or till now, got settled in and immediately going live with this show. Drake, how you doing? Literally in almost 24 hours, about 26 hours or so, we are going to know who the next quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts is. And then we've got the whole rest of the weekend to see which other rookies will be joining the Colts. How you doing, man? How you feeling on NFL Draft Eve?
I am freaking out a little bit. It is it's not just the quarterback. You've got defensive back needs, you've got wide receiver needs, you've got O-line depth needs. Like you've really got an interesting draft for the Colts, because then even positions like defensive end, where you're like, well, you've got Odangbo and you've got Ebicom and you've got Kwity Paye. You can't pass on some of these freakish athletes at defensive end. So you're like hoping they also pick one of those guys. There's just so much excitement. I'm taking tomorrow off. Friday, I'm going to be watching. Saturday, I'm going to be watching. It is going to be pandemonium. I can't wait to see who they assemble with those 9 picks.
And we're going to have so much content coming out on the channel, on horseshoehuddle.com. You guys are going to want to be locked in. DSG Goodbar starting us off right with a super chat. We really appreciate you, buddy. Almost time for spring football, Christmas. You're 100% right. Draftmas, exactly. Truitt is here talking about all the mocks, and that's what our episode today is going to be about. Drake and I are each going to give our final mock drafts the day before the draft, and it's going to be a fun one. Tom Williams says, please let them select Anthony Richardson. A lot of fans want Anthony Richardson. Stats Matt saying, taking the day off, Drake? How dare you? Well, Stats Matt, maybe you should take the day off, buddy. Enjoy Draftmas. We got CMDSR as always. Dabney is here. Tina is here. Rich Wheeler is here. Wyatt Law is here. We've got the whole squad intact, and the whole squad already knows what I'm going to say next. Go follow us on all the things. Go ahead and like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Go ahead and follow at Colts on FN on Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that bell so you know whenever Drake and I are going live. Destin and Shad are going live literally right after us today at 7 p.m. Eastern. A little double episode on the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel the night before the draft. Drake and Destin are going to be live all throughout the first round tomorrow night. Be sure to be locked into the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel while you're watching the coverage. They'll be going to give live reactions to each and every pick, and you'll certainly be wanting to watch when the Colts are up at number 4, or maybe even sooner. We'll have to see what happens here. And if you guys would like to listen to us, we're also on Apple Podcasts. The link is in the description below. Go ahead and check that out. So today, Drake and I are going to do our own mock drafts. I posted mine on horseshoehuddle.com earlier this morning. I know Stats Matt was a little upset that his guy, Cody Mock, was not involved in it this time. Drake, I think we can both say that it's going to be a very unpredictable draft. I would be happy if I got maybe 2 of the names that I put in this mock draft. If I get 3, I think I'm going to be ecstatic. What do you think?
Well, I think that, especially given what Ballard typically does and how really, just if we're being at the simplest form, draft day always brings absolute insanity with some kind of pick, some kind of selection. And it's almost always in the first round that you see the most aggressive moves made. So we already saw Carolina trade, and we've already seen some quarterbacks signed like Rodgers and Garoppolo. So did that switch up how teams are trying to, draft? Now you're hearing Tennessee wants a quarterback, and Seattle and potentially Baltimore. So I think it's going to be a while. I'm right there with you. If I can get 2 or 3 on mine, I'll be pretty happy guy.
Absolutely. And guys, there's still time to go and order the Indy Draft Guide as well. So that way you can be up to date on every single one of these prospects. Over 225 different scouting reports on all of these guys leading up to the draft and how they fit with the Indianapolis Colts. Again, the link is in the description. If you want to grab that before the draft this weekend, I'd highly recommend it. It's what Drake and I have been using all off season on these guys, and you're going to want to use it tomorrow and all through the weekend as the Colts are taking these guys. So without further ado, we've talked enough. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of the episode here. We're going to start out in round one. And really, there's no debate on what position the Colts are going to be taking here. They're going to be taking a quarterback. The real debate is which quarterback is it going to be? Are we going to see a possible fall of CJ Stroud, the quarterback out of Ohio State? Will the Colts go with the super athletic quarterback with maybe the highest upside in this class, and Anthony Richardson? And then there's Will Levis, a guy that is very polarizing, is a really good athlete, has a cannon for an arm, and kind of, just as Peyton Manning said, was genetically built in a lab to be an NFL quarterback. So great options all the way around. Drake, I'm going to have you kick us off here. Who are you taking with the first pick of the Colts in the 2023 NFL draft? Is there a trade up? Are you going to stick at 4? What's going to happen?
So for me, I know that everybody was talking about. I'm trying to think like Ballard, and also kind of what I would want to do if I was the GM. First off, they're going to stay at 4 with my mock draft. I think that he's been patient up to this point. Could it happen on draft day? Of course, but I really think they're going to stay at 4 because I don't think the Texans are going to take a quarterback. And I think that they're going to be able to just kind of sit there and have 3 guys potentially at their disposal. However, as much as I think that CJ Stroud does stick out to them, I think that Anthony Richardson sticks out more. I think that they take Anthony Richardson from the University of Florida with the number 4 pick in the first round of the NFL draft, and they solidify that franchise quarterback.
Right. I mean, it's a great pick. It's a great pick. And honestly, I'm right there with you. Now, in my first 2 mock drafts, I had the Colts trading up to the number 3 pick with the Arizona Cardinals. But as we've gotten closer to this draft, it just seems more and more likely that the Colts are going to be able to stay at 4 and get the guy they want. And I think with how everything plays out in this draft, I think it's going to be Anthony Richardson there at 4. I mean, Richardson, honestly, he really could be the alien that the Colts have been searching for at the quarterback position since Andrew Luck retired there in 2019. I mean, Richardson is arguably the most athletic quarterback prospect the NFL has ever seen. He's got a combination of size, speed, explosiveness, has the strongest arm in the class, and really he's got that arm that makes you have to cover every single blade of grass out there on that field. And obviously Richardson is not the perfect prospect. I mean, the completion percentage is alarming. And he does have some issues with his mechanics and accuracy, some decision making that he's going to need to clean up. But when you really dive into the film, he's not nearly as raw as people might think. You see him making those full field reads, being able to dissect a defense, his pocket movement, his feel in the pocket. That's something that you really can't teach, and it's something that, when you really dive into the best quarterbacks in the NFL, that's an innate trait that they just have. So when you combine all of that together, plus, I mean, you towards the end of the year last year with Florida, you've seen how he improved with those reps, and as he got more experience, you saw that improvement. And I think with Shane Steichen there at the helm, and it's his experience, and he's proven he can take a quarterback that's kind of raw in Jalen Hurts and turn him into an MVP candidate and the top 5 quarterback in the NFL. With the way Richardson is wired and how hard he works and how dedicated he is to his craft. I mean, how many times did he say in this draft cycle that he wants to go out there and be the best quarterback of all time? You combine that all together, and honestly, I think the sky's the limit with Richardson in Indy. I don't see, I think it's way more likely that Richardson hits his ceiling in Indianapolis than he would hit his floor. Now, Do I think that would happen anywhere, like in other places? No, I think Richardson has to be in the right situation in order to reach that. But I think with the combination that the Colts have as far as coaches and what they can put around Anthony Richardson, I honestly think this is the best place for him. And if he does reach his ceiling, you're going to have a quarterback that can compete with the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allens, the Joe Burrows, the Justin Herberts in the AFC for the next 10 to 15 years. And that's what the Colts need out of this quarterback selection.
Well, and look, there's I can't take credit for saying this. There's a fan of the show named Colts fan Cole on Twitter who actually said something really interesting on why he wanted Richardson. Get the guy who's got the highest ceiling because you need that against the AFC. Okay, it's very simple. Now you have Aaron Rodgers to deal with. Okay, I mean the AFC is just chock full of quarterbacks that can destroy you. Not to say the NFC is not competitive. It is, but the AFC has the quarterbacks. And so you need to have a guy that can go out there and duel it out with a guy like Mahomes, duel it out with a guy like Allen, potentially a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who has now Calvin Ridley and might have Zay Flowers for all we know. So it's like you really have to get the guy with the mobility, with the athleticism. You got to take the chance on the traits, and the highest ceiling that I've seen in some time with Anthony Richardson. So obviously I like that pick too.
Rich Wheeler says, AR is the vibrant personality and talent. I want to inject some spark and spotlight onto this franchise. Tina Hauser says, we need a mobile quarterback, and that's exactly what Anthony Richardson is. Christine says, some of you will make all the excuses for Richardson. There are no stories of Richardson's hard work. Saying it isn't the same. I'm sorry, Christine. That's just not true. Yeah. I mean, you've heard numerous stories from his coaches there in Florida, from people on the outside that have worked with Anthony Richardson about his hard work, about his passion, about his leadership. I mean, there was at one point in the middle of the season when the Gators were starting to slide, and Richardson stands up in front of the entire team and says, you know, this is on me and this is on all of us. We were putting out a sorry effort out there. I don't like your guys' body language. And if you guys aren't all in, then you need to go somewhere else. And he didn't just talk the talk, he walked the walk. I mean, from there, you heard from all of his coaches that Anthony Richardson, he had already been doing this, but he even took it a step up as far as being the first one in, last one out. Practices became harder. And that's when you really started to see Anthony Richardson towards the second half of the season. I mean, his touchdown to interception ratio completely jumped and completely flipped. So there are stories out there. If you don't know them, that's fine. But just to say that it's making stuff up, you're not looking hard enough. There's plenty of stories out there for Anthony Richardson. Now, I do think it's going to be interesting if it's between Anthony Richardson and if CJ Stroud is still on the board there at number 4 when the Colts are picking. Do I think it'll come down to I think it will come down to CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson. And it's going to be, and I'm sure the Colts have already had this discussion. It's probably been at one that's a lengthy discussion, because I think CJ Stroud could also be easily a top 10 quarterback in the NFL with a guy like Shane Steichen. I mean, CJ Stroud, you guys that have been watching the show all offseason now know that CJ Stroud is my quarterback 1 in this class. So if CJ Stroud is on there, I would lean CJ Stroud. I think that he, with the group there, he could reach his ceiling as well, which again could be top 5 quarterback if you can get that Georgia CJ Stroud out of him consistently, and that's a big if. There's a big if with every single one of these quarterbacks. Can Anthony Richardson reach his very, very high ceiling? Can CJ Stroud become the guy consistently that we've seen against Georgia? Those are huge ifs, and it's going to take the player working hard and to really recognize that. And you're going to see how this coaching staff can put the group behind them and develop the plan for that quarterback. It's going to be very, very interesting, because I would not be surprised one bit if CJ Stroud is available there at number 4, that ends up being the pick for the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, and I gotta agree with you, especially after hearing so many narratives have kind of switched on who Carolina really traded up to number 1 to get. It really seems like if he is available, it's going to be hard for Steichen, for Ballard, Ballard and Irsay not to say, man, the accuracy, it literally is right there. A guy like him, you could hit the ground running pretty quick. And also, I just wanted to address one thing. Every one of these quarterbacks has something to prove. Bryce Young has to prove he's not small enough. Will Levis has to prove he can make all the throws and he can hit his ceiling just like Anthony Richardson does. And CJ Stroud has to prove he's mobile enough. And like you said, he can lift up his team in pressure moments. So each one of these guys has a lot to prove in the NFL because none of them are that generational Andrew Luck, Dan Marino kind of talent.
Gibson Levi, shout out to Levi, says we love Stroud, baby. We got a Stroud fan, we've got Anthony Richardson fans. It's going to be very interesting tomorrow night. But let's move on to the second round of the NFL draft, where this could be a perfect trade back opportunity for the Indianapolis Colts to gain more draft capital if they see fit. Drake, what do you think happens there in the second round for the Colts?
So forgive me, I actually have to look at my notes here. So I do think that they like Kelee Ringo. However, I think that there is the off chance, not saying that they would still take him even if he was there, but I think there's the off chance he might not be. And I do think that in my mock draft, I've got them trading back with Tampa Bay to receive a 2024 sixth round pick from Tampa Bay. Tampa would then choose an edge rusher, and the Colts, because they need an edge rusher. So the Colts would take cornerback Julius Brents from Kansas State and bring the hometown boy back home.
Wow, that's that. I think in terms of the getting back that for the trade value, I think I would want the Colts to get a little bit more than just a sixth round pick. But it's interesting. I do love Julius Brents though. The pick that you have, Julius Brents, I think would be a nice cornerback addition. Long, athletic guy. Nathan, we really appreciate the super chat, man. You're always a huge supporter. We love to see it. Thank you so much, Nathan. He asked, what if Ballard trades out of number 4? Nathan, I really can't see it. I honestly cannot see Chris Ballard trading out of 4. Partially because, I mean, in all the reports, there's a lot of people that there's a lot of reports that the Arizona Cardinals are having trouble even trading out of number 3. So if that's the case, I don't think there's really going to be that much of a market for people to come up to for the Colts to trade back. I don't see it happening. The Colts are going to stick at 4 or they're going to trade up. That's what everything that I've heard. There has been zero discussions about trading back. It would have to involve probably multiple first round picks for the Colts to even consider that. And that I just don't think that's going to happen. So I think we can put all the thoughts of if the Colts are going to trade back. I know Ballard likes to tease about that. I just don't see that happening. So I think we could really put those thoughts to bed.
Yeah, and to make it very brief, yeah, he's he likes to get the bargain, he likes to get the bang for the buck. But just to put it very simple, his job is on the line. He's got to get a quarterback. He can't rely on Gardner Minshew.
Exactly. I'm going to go cornerback as well, Drake, at this pick, but I'm not going to trade back. In my previous mock drafts, since I had the Colts trading up to get their quarterback, I had the Colts trading back from 35 to recoup some of that draft capital that they lost. But since I have the Colts staying at 4, I think it's more likely that they stay at 35 if the right player is available. And I think, I'm sorry, Stats Matt, I know you wanted it to be Cody Mock. But with the dire need that the Colts have at the cornerback position, with really only having 2 starting caliber players at the position on their roster, I'm going Kelee Ringo out of Georgia. I think he is one of the only players. I do think Cody Mock would be one of the others, but I think Kelee Ringo is one of the only players that would, if he's available there, the Colts would stick at 35 and take him, especially because the Colts have shown such a high interest in the Georgia cornerback all throughout the draft process. I mean, the chief scouting executive or chief personnel executive, Morocco Brown, was at his pro day. His Ringo's athleticism is off the charts, and he's got the size and the length that the Colts love at the cornerback position. Only 20 years old, so he's young, just like Anthony Richardson. Plenty of room to grow. He has some issues in man coverage, but he really thrives back in zone where he can make plays on the ball. And would be a perfect fit in Gus Bradley's defense and probably be a starter on the outside from day one. So I think if Kelee Ringo is there at 35, that's going to be the pick for the Colts.
I love that pick. I think that Kelee Ringo has the potential to be a nasty cornerback. Now, like you said in the last episode, actually, the Colts did sprinkle in a little bit of man defense in there. So rest assured, he's going to have to learn how to play man defense against some nasty outside threats. But he's got the physicality and the build that if he can just connect everything, he could be a really good cornerback in the NFL.
Absolutely. Drake, let's move to the third round. Do we expect a trade back here, or do you think the Colts are going to stay put where they're at in the third round? Currently, they're set to pick at number 79.
See, I think in that position they're gonna stay put. Am I giving my pick?
Yep, go ahead. What's your pick for the third round?
Okay, I think this was a guy you were pretty high on, and once I looked into it, I was like, okay, he'd be a nice fit. I think that with the 79th pick in the NFL draft, the Colts will select wide receiver out of Cincinnati, Tyler Scott. I think that
Love that pick.
Is a wonderful fit. I think that he's a great slot receiver. I mean, he had almost 900 yards, 9 touchdowns, 54 catches in 2022. He's got a lot of room to grow, and I think that Shane Steichen's offense could be a great place for that to start.
Tyler Scott is a burner there. I know the Colts have had a lot of interest and a lot of connections with him throughout this whole draft cycle. It's been reported numerous times. Plus, I've heard it from people that I trust close to the Colts that they're really high on Tyler Scott. If he falls to the third round, I think it'd be an easy pick for the Colts to take Tyler Scott. It's just going to be whether or not he actually does fall there to the Colts. I think there's going to be another wide receiver and a guy that I've had in every single one of my mock drafts up until this point. I think there's going to be a really good wide receiver there at number 79, and that's Jonathan Mingo out of Ole Miss. He really fits the build of a Chris Ballard type receiver. He meets the size threshold at 6'2", 220 pounds, because remember, while the Colts did sign a smaller Isaiah McKenzie, Ballard has only drafted wide receivers that are over 6 foot and over 200 pounds since he joined the Colts. And Mingo is also an athletic freak. 4.446 40-yard dash, 39.5-inch vertical leap. He would be that big slot receiver in Shane Steichen's offense. Solid route runner who can make contested catches, and he's a really big weapon after the catch. And I think that's something that the Colts really like to have, a quality the Colts love to have in their wide receivers. We've seen what Michael Pittman can do after the catch, adding someone like Jonathan Mingo as well. And what do we always talk about with Colts wide receivers? That they're required to block. And the Colts really missed that last year without Zach Pascal. And blocking is one of Mingo's best attributes. So putting him in the slot allows more blocking ability, can probably help spark some runs for Jonathan Taylor in the running game, possibly Anthony Richardson in the running game. You want to think about that. But with the value that the Colts place on the size, the speed, athleticism, blocking, and not only the need for a slot receiver, I think Jonathan Mingo would be a seamless fit there for the Colts offense in the third round.
Yeah, and to make it very brief, it's interesting. We all were like, there were people that were like, oh, Zach Pascal, 40 catches, whatever. He goes to Philly. Yeah, you also didn't see those 60, 40, 50, 35-yard runs anymore. You didn't see those pop because guess what? Yes, Taylor can make guys miss, but it's a lot easier for him to make guys miss when you have someone in that third level, when you're one guy away from busting it loose, blocking that guy, and then you just run right by him. And that's what Zach Pascal did in Philly to help that running game really take off. He was one of the better blocking wide receivers. So Jonathan Mingo, hell of a pick. Love every bit of that.
Right. Sky says all the wide receivers are tall. I think we need a speedster. Well, I mean, Tyler Scott isn't that big. I mean, he's 5'11", and he runs a 4.3 40. 4.46, that's about the speed of Alec Pierce ran last year, and Alec Pierce has quite a bit of speed. So when you're moving at a 4.4 for a wide receiver, that's pretty quick. DSG Goodbar is a psychic. He had Scott and Mingo are his third round guys, starting to become stats Matt over there, who always knows what at least I'm thinking. anyway. So let's move along to the fourth round, Drake. And I'm gonna go first on this one. This is where my trade happens. I think that finally on day 3 we see a Colts trade. So I think the Colts are going to send their number 106 in the fourth round and their final 7th round pick of number 236 to the New England Patriots to move back 11 spots in the fourth round, but then they gain 2 sixth round picks out of it as well for the Patriots to jump up 11 spots. So this gives the Colts an extra pick in the 6th round, eliminates a 7th round pick, and I still think they get a really solid guy on their board. First offensive lineman that gets added, and I think it's Nick Saldiveri out of Old Dominion. Saldiveri honestly could end up being a diamond in the rough for the Colts, and I really do mean that. When you turn on the tape, his size, length, and his athletic ability are all there. Has shown really great promise as both a run blocker and a pass blocker. I think he just needs time. I think he just needs time to refine his footwork, become more consistent, but all the tools are there. And I think he can play both. He can be both a swing tackle in the NFL, or you could even move him inside to possibly right guard and challenge Will Fries towards the later part of the year. If you want somebody, if Will Fries isn't able to handle the starting right guard duties. And I still think the Colts might add somebody in free agency. But honestly, I think with patience and with the right coaching, putting a lot on Tony Sparano Jr., excuse me, I honestly think Saldiveri could develop into a starting caliber player on that offensive line for the Colts.
Yeah, and he's also very, very, very much in the way of like learning and willingness to learn and raw ability. He's kind of like Will Fries. It's very interesting. He's one of those later guys that's going to get picked potentially day 2, 3, and he's going to have a lot to prove. But absolutely love Nick Saldiveri. For me, by the way, love the trade back with the Patriots. That's awesome. I did not expect to hear that.
And speaking of that, Donald Campbell, we really appreciate the super chat, my guy. Are you predicting any draft weekend trades from Ballard, either acquiring or selling? I think there would be at least one trade. I know Drake has one trade in his. I have just the one trade in mind that I detailed there. But I would be shocked if the Colts didn't either trade back or trade up for somebody this weekend, because Ballard is always wheeling and dealing to either get more picks, or if he really likes a guy, he'll move up and grab them. So Donald, we really appreciate the super chat, buddy. Thank you so much for the support. Drake, what about your pick here in the 4th round?
I think that they finally can't deny the level of athleticism that the defensive ends have. And I think that spells Yaya Diaby for me. I think that's going to be
Yaya.
I think that when you have 14 sacks, in your final season before declaring for the draft, I think that's going to definitely pique Chris Ballard's interest. And plus, like you said, they do need depth, especially with Ngakoue leaving town. It's going to be huge to fill that. And I think that Yaya Diaby is going to be one heck of a player. And also, he could kind of learn behind a guy like Ebukam, because Ebukam's probably the most seasoned veteran out of all the defensive ends outside of Lewis.
Yaya Diaby is just such an athletic freak, and I think he would fit in perfectly there on that defensive line for the Colts. I mean, he's just he was a stud at the combine. Watching his tape, he's like just a fireball out there. Would really bring a burst of energy to the Colts defensive line. So let's move it along to the 5th round, where the Colts currently have 3 picks in the 5th round. So we'll kind of go a little bit quickly on those, kind of a rapid fire for the 5th round. Drake, who do you got for these 5th round picks that the Colts have seemed to stockpile over the last couple seasons, or even this season? Remember, one of those picks comes from the Dallas Cowboys in the trade for Stephon Gilmore.
I think that, I'm going to kind of throw something else in this one, because I picked Nick Saldiveri for this one.
Nice.
But I also think that if this guy falls, since you already said him, if this guy does fall due to injury and he's still kind of sitting around in the early 5th round, I also would not be surprised if they took a shot on Andrew Voorhees. I think that he was probably on their board, or at least on most people's board, until that injury. So but originally my pick was Nick Saldiveri, but I also wouldn't be surprised if Andrew Voorhees is just sitting there if the Colts don't take a flyer on him, just for the potential when he is back from his injury.
DSG Goodbar, reading your mind once again. So you got Voorhees there, or Nick Saldiveri as one of the picks. What are your two other picks in the 5th round for the Colts, Drake?
So I don't have them taking any or like trading any back. I think it's I said his name wrong the last episode, but I think it's Caillou Blue Kelly.
Yes.
I think that he is going. I think he's sick. I mean, he's like 6'1", 6'2". He's like 190 pounds. He fits that mold. I think that he is one of the more like flying under the radar type of defensive backs. And the Colts, I think they're going to double dip at that position, maybe even another position. But I absolutely love Blue Kelly, and I think that in Gus Bradley's defense, he could really find his footing there with Keely Ringo or Julius Brents.
I like that you added a second cornerback because I do think that the Colts are going to add multiple cornerbacks in this draft. We heard from Chris Ballard last Friday, and he said how deep the cornerback class is. And when you look at the Colts roster, they, even if they do grab a Julius Brents or a Keely Ringo, there's still a need for more cornerback help. So grabbing another one in the 5th round, I think Caillou Blue Kelly would be a great fit. So I've got, for my 3 picks in the 5th round of the draft, I haven't gotten a pass rusher yet. And as Ballard said, you can never have enough pass rushers. Again, he said last Friday in his press conference that there are going to be pass rushers in this draft class that you can get in the 4th, 5th round, and they're going to be good contributors. And I'm going with that at pick 138 in the 5th round. I'm going with Dylan Horton out of TCU. Now we already know Kwity Paye and Samson Abukum are going to be the guys that probably hold the starting spots on that defensive line. But Dylan Horton's got some upside. He's got all the physical qualities the Colts look for in their defensive ends. He's long, explosive, got good size to him. The length also really gives him an edge as a pass rusher. And then unlike Yannick Ngakoue last year, Dylan Horton can hold his own against the run. He is still raw as a pass rusher, but what do the Colts always do when they're drafting pass rushers? They bet on those high end traits, and Dylan Horton has all the traits needed to be successful in the NFL. Again, high upside, will likely start on special teams as a rookie as he continues to develop his game. But I'm really high on Dylan Horton to the Colts there. My second pick in the 5th round, I saw Stats Matt put up Dorian Williams, who I had in my first 2 mock drafts. I think Dorian Williams goes higher than the 5th round. That's the only reason I didn't include him. And I don't know if the Colts will address linebacker before that. I think Dorian Williams has a ceiling of the 3rd round. So I'm going to go with another linebacker that I think really fits the Colts well. And that's Owen Papau out of Auburn. With Bobby Okereke leaving in free agency, there is a hole there. Colts love long, athletic linebackers that can cover from sideline to sideline. And that's exactly what the linebacker out of Auburn can do. Great length, cover from sideline to sideline, can be a blitzer. And I think while he works on his game, some play recognition, continues to develop, he can kind of take that EJ Speed role on special teams. I think Speed will still play on special teams, but you can kind of have that mold of Owen Papau. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. Really developing on special teams. So I think that's be the pick there. And then my 3rd pick, I'm going back to the offensive line because the Colts still desperately need depth on that offensive line. And while they already took Saldiveri in the 4th, let's add more depth in the 5th. John Gaines II, the guard out of UCLA. He could be another diamond in the rough. Great athlete for the position. I think you guys can see a theme for me. I'm going with all these athletes because that's just who the Colts have shown they love to draft over the years. Showed solid skills in the run game, pass game. He does need to gain some play strength and work on his technique. But if you think about it, those both describe Bernard Raymond, a guy that needed to work on his play strength, needed to work on his technique, didn't stop the Colts from drafting him last year. And I don't think John Gaines necessarily has to play right away. But I think John Gaines would be somebody that's high on the Colts board late on day 3.
Yeah, and obviously with all of the struggles that the offensive line had, it's very good too with 9 picks, 2 more than the amount of rounds you even have. It's good to shore up the offensive line. I was going to say for my final pick in the 5th round, I want to bring another hometown guy back. I want
Do
Cam
it.
Jones from
Oh,
Indiana
there we
University.
go.
6'2", 6'3", about 225, 230. He is that prototypical hybrid linebacker, the new age linebacker that can do it all. He's had some struggles with pursuit angles, missing very easy tackles, but overall with the right kind of ability, or excuse me, with the right kind of camp and with the right kind of coaching, and maybe even just starting him out, putting him in sets, he could get there. He could absolutely get into that position of volume tackler or, turnover machine when you need him on a package set.
Owen Papau, thank you, Truett. Hopefully now I can say his name
Papau.
correctly. Papau. Hey, hell of a name for
It
a
is.
linebacker to have
Awesome.
Pow in your last name. So Drake, I know you made the trade to get a 2024 sixth round pick, but I have a couple picks in the sixth round after the Colts made that trade with the New England Patriots. So I've got 2 sixth round picks here, and this is where I'm going to double dip at cornerback for the Indianapolis Colts. I'm going with a small school guy, Starling Thomas V, a cornerback out of University of Alabama, Birmingham, UAB. This is when, again, we're late on day 3. What did the Colts really like to draft late on day 3? Guys with really big, like really high athletic traits. And what's better than 4.3 speed, just absolute blazing speed. And that's what Starling Thomas V brings to the cornerback position. He's athletic, physical corner that can make plays on the ball. Doesn't have the ideal height and length that the Colts covet. Again, he's about 5'10", doesn't have the longest arms, but he can play outside or inside in that speed. He has the speed to stick with any wide receiver in the NFL, would be able to contribute special teams right away as he continues to work on his game, provides quality depth. It'd basically be Isaiah Rodgers 2.0. So the Colts drafted Isaiah Rodgers in 2020. You're kind of getting that next iteration of Isaiah Rodgers, a guy that is going to be a standout on special teams right away, and you can see if he's going to be able to develop into something down the road. And then my final pick in the 6th round, this one was honestly the toughest choice for me. Is trying to figure out who exactly fits here. And I know safety really isn't that high on the Colts board, but they did lose Rodney McLeod last year. And with Nick Cross coming up to take that starting strong safety position, you already have Julian Blackman and Rodney Thomas II over there. You can get a guy that's a little bit younger to help develop. And I think Jason Taylor II out of Oklahoma State would really be a good pick there. He's a prototypical day 3 pick for the Colts. He's, like I said, he's raw in some areas and can give up some big plays. But again, great athlete, knack for making plays around the ball. He's had a couple forced fumbles last year, known to intercept a ball or two. He can play as a deep safety. He can play in the box. He really has an all-around safety game. He just really needs to work and fine-tune some of the more technical aspects of his game. Again, a guy that can get reps on special teams right away as he develops, and someone that could really be someone, again, almost like Rodney Thomas II. You don't expect him to have a big contribution when he's taken, but a guy that as he develops could really shock and surprise some people and be a solid depth piece for the Colts, not only this season, but for a few seasons down the road.
Well, and Rodney Thomas, I mean, he literally led the team in interceptions, coming in the latest of late rounds, which is the 7th round, out of a school that no one talks about when they really talk about football, or on defense anyway, and that's Yale. So it's like, it's crazy where that talent can sometimes fall. I do love the fact that you got some of those 6th round picks, though. Well done. That was very nice done. So.
I saw that opportunity there. I saw that the New England Patriots have a lot of picks there, and I do know that Bill Belichick likes to be active on day 3, so it wouldn't surprise me if that does happen. Wyatt Law brings up a good point. Don't forget about Marcel Dabo.
Yeah.
He will be in the conversation as well. Spent all of last season on the practice squad, so we'll see how he does. I like this comment from DSG Goodbar as well. A lot of unfinished products in this draft class. Coaches are going to earn their pay this year for sure. Let's move along to the final round, the 7th round in this class. Drake, I think you still have 2 picks remaining in the 7th round. I only have 1 pick, so let's alternate. You give one in your 7th round, I'll go, and then you wrap us up.
So for the 221st pick is a guy that I just love this wide receiver, and my comp for him is Alec Pierce with maybe lighter feet, and he could potentially be a nastier blocker, and that is Andre Iosavas from Princeton. This is a dude who has every single trait you want as a receiver. Watching him at the combine, his hands were just like they were just the softest hands. Everything just looked so natural catching the ball. I can just see Shane Steichen sticking that dude in the freaking slot as a huge slot guy and just absolutely making defensive backs shake their heads like, what are we supposed to do with this guy? I think that his ceiling is kind of like Anthony Richardson's, only for a wide receiver. He comes from a school where it was a lot of high balls and Princeton. Okay, it was just vertical offense. That's it. Shane Steichen runs a vertical offense, and I think that if you can fine tune his route running, you could have one heck of a prospect in the 7th round.
I think Drake shared his mock draft with DSG Goodbar before the show because it seems like DSG Goodbar is literally calling out. He said Iosivas or Hutchinson is available. So he is all on it today. Hey, shout out to DSG Goodbar, becoming the psychic of today's episode. That's pretty wild. Like I said, I only have 1 7th round pick available for the Colts, but they moved up. Or actually this was the 221. So what does Chris Ballard always say? You can never have enough pass rushers. So I'm going to add another defensive lineman. And you think, well, the Colts have enough defensive linemen. Here's a stat. As I was looking through the past Chris Ballard drafts, Ballard has taken multiple defensive linemen in 5 out of 6 drafts with the Indianapolis Colts.
Really?
So you can almost book it that more than one pass rusher is going to be selected this weekend for the Colts. So after picking Dylan Horton out of TCU in the 5th round, I'm going with another athletic, surprise, surprise, but this time it's an interior pass rusher in Dante Stills, defensive tackle out of West Virginia. He's got the body type to play inside and outside on the defensive line, kind of a tweener almost, but the Colts love those guys that can have position versatility all along the defensive line. And 5 seasons at Virginia's a little older prospect, but he tallied 23.5 sacks while displaying really good quickness and agility in his play. Colts may need to test him out, like I said, because he is kind of a tweener, to really find where his spot is going to be on this defensive line. But I think he could immediately contribute on special teams right away as he finds that and be really a spark on special teams for the Colts. So again, can never have enough pass rushers. I think the Colts will again select multiple this weekend.
Well, and hey, defensive tackle, I know for Colts fans might not sound like sexy picks, but I'm telling you, imagine Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner fresh, way more fresh than they were when they were dominating everyone last year. Now they have far more energy to expend every single down they're playing. So you want to have those interior guys. They already started with Taven Bryan, so love the Stills pick. For my final pick, I think the Colts are going to dip and get themselves a running back. I think that they are going to go with a pass catching back, more of like a Darren Sproles, not even Nyheim Hines, because Nyheim Hines was lean, but Darren Sproles was kind of like a muscular, tiny little hamster. So I think they're going to go with Deuce Vaughn from Kansas State. That's going to be the second guy from KSU they bring in. 5'5", so he's literally a hamster, but the dude is everything that they're looking for that they missed with Nyheim Hines. And I think he could also play some very interesting roles on special teams. Maybe he could get involved in returns. I just think that they're looking for a scat back again. I think they missed Nyheim Hines.
Yeah, I think running back very well could be an option. The only reason I didn't put running back is, and this is no pre-knowledge or anything of what the Colts are going to do, but it just seems like the Colts are very good at finding those undrafted rookie running backs, and I think there's going to be plenty to choose from, but I would not be surprised if the Colts did take a flyer on a running back late. You said Deuce Vaughn. I'm a big fan of Evan Hall out of Northwestern, who is probably the best pass catching back in this entire draft class. So as DSG Goodbar says, Vaughn is literally a bowling ball that finds openings in the defense. I think that would really be a great pick. Wyatt Law says, I wonder what your selections collective RAS might be.
30.
It's probably above. He probably would equal out to probably at least 9.2. I took a lot of athletes, but I think that's what the Colts are really going to do. Again, They did it last year. All of the guys they took had a RAS has had a RAS above 9. I think that very well could happen again this year. So let's wrap things up here, kind of show who we did draft in our mock draft, because I know you guys, we had so many picks, probably went in one ear out the other. So for our YouTube audience, we're going to throw up a graphic here. This is Drake's mock draft. Drake, go ahead and give us a recap of your picks here, and who do you think the Colts are going to take this weekend?
Yeah, so obviously, number one, I think that they've had their eye on Richardson. They've scouted the crap out of him. I think that second round, they're going to be trading back to get Julius Brents. Now, I did kind of think about it. They'll probably get something better than a 6th round pick for a 2nd round trade. Round 3, Tyler Scott. That's a no brainer for me. It's a bigger slot receiver than Isaiah McKenzie, and I think that he's going to be a great addition.
Burner.
I think that. Yeah, he's a burner, very fast. Yaya Diaby, I think that they've had their eye on him, similar to Richardson, and I think that his upside is huge to them. I like Nick Saldiveri just because he's got that really high potential to even play guard position and either push Fries to start or supplant Fries as the starter. And then with those 2 5th and 7th round, or the last 2 with the in the 5th round, Caillou Blue Kelly, I think that he's a physical corner that's gonna do very well with Gus Bradley. Cam Jones from Indiana, very athletic, very fast. He's a smaller linebacker, but again, Shaq Leonard is 225 pounds, and he's kind of similar in size too. So you don't always have to have a huge linebacker. And those last 2 picks, Andre Iosavas, I really do think that he could potentially be one of the biggest surprises in this draft. I just think they should take him on the upside alone. And then Deuce Vaughn, I think that they did miss that pass catching specialist, if you will. Deion Jackson did great, but I think they want to push him too. And kind of like we heard, Deuce Vaughn is a physical scat back. He's not the kind of guy that's just going to avoid contact. He will run right through you. So those are my picks.
Really like your picks, Drake. I think it's a really well-balanced draft for the Colts. Really love the Yaya Diaby pick in the 4th round. If he's available, I think the Colts would be all on that. So for my picks here, I'm going with Anthony Richardson at number 4 as well. I think the conversation gets very interesting if CJ Stroud is available there at 4, and would not be surprised one bit if the Colts take Stroud over Richardson. I think it could get, like I said, very interesting, and I think the Colts would probably lean Stroud in that scenario. But again, Ballard always says bet on the high end traits and bet on the upside. Anthony Richardson has that alien-like upside that you could compete with the best quarterbacks in the AFC and in the NFL for the next 10 to 15 years if he hits his ceiling. And I think this is the perfect situation for him in Indianapolis. 2nd round, I go another athletic freak at cornerback, Keely Ringo, a guy who before this season was projected to be a top 10 pick, just fell off a little bit. And I think with him being so young, coming to a defense like Gus Bradley's, he can really find his niche and be a solid number 1 cornerback for the Indianapolis Colts. In the 3rd round, Jonathan Mingo, wide receiver out of Ole Miss, that big athletic slot wide receiver that the Colts have been looking for. Great in the running game as well. Just brings so many different things to that wide receiver room to really round it out. 4th round is when I make I think the Colts will make the trade with the New England Patriots. Get Nick Saldiveri, the versatile offensive lineman out of Old Dominion, can play tackle, play guard, and I think he's got a really good chance of starting in the NFL. Moving on to the 5th round, Dylan Horton, defensive end out of TCU, an athletic, high upside defensive end who can start on special teams and become a rotational piece for the Colts defensive line. Owen Papau, the linebacker out of Alabama, athletic, fast, can cover from sideline to sideline, kind of reminds me of EJ Speed and possibly have the same track and development. John Gaines II, the offensive guard out of UCLA, wraps up the 5th round. Another guy, depth on the offensive line, athletic, needs to put on some strength and work on his technique a little bit, but I think again could develop into a solid starting level guard at the next level. 2 6th round picks here from the New England trade. Double dip at cornerback with Starling Thomas V out of UAB, kind of Isaiah Rodgers 2.0 in my opinion, and then go to Jason Taylor II out of Oklahoma State, adding depth to the safety position with the loss of Rodney McLeod. And then, like I said before, you can never have enough pass rushers. Dante Stills, defensive tackle out of West Virginia, athletic, can play multiple positions. Just a game record there for the Colts to end the draft. And that's our picks. We'll see what happens on Thursday, tomorrow night, Friday night, and Saturday. I can tell you guys it's just going to be an absolutely wild ride. So that's our show for this evening. Appreciate you guys for coming along. As Stats Matt says, 26-ish hours until the pick is in. We cannot wait. Shout out to DSG Goodbar, Stats Matt, Sky, Tina, Gloreco, Truitt, Isaac, Wyatt Law, Nico, Turbo Duran. Let me see. I want to make sure I get everybody here. Dave, CMDSR, Donald, who gave us a super chat, Nathan, who gave us a super chat. We love all of you guys. You guys make it so much fun. I'm here in Kansas City. I'm going to try to provide you with the best on-site coverage that I can for horseshoehuddle.com. So make sure you check out the site all weekend for all of the content we are going to be pushing out all weekend long. Go ahead and like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Go ahead and follow at Colts on FN on Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that bell so you know whenever Drake and I are going live, whenever Shad and Destin are going live, which in fact don't go far because they're going live in literally 9 minutes to do their pre-draft episode. So you might as well just stick around and watch their episode as well. Drake, what are you going to be working on this weekend for the site and as the draft comes around?
So I just released a piece that says that if Stroud is available, the Colts will probably take him. It's an opinion piece, but I also just have that gut feeling if he's sitting there, they're not going to resist. But I think I'm also going to be covering the draft grades and other draft stuff as well. But definitely excited to see who they're going to pick, and I can't wait to slap some ridiculously meaningless grades on those picks.
Awesome. And I'm going to be, like I said, since I'm live in Kansas City, I'm going to try to get all the quotes and all the stories from the prospects that the Colts take as I can, provide you with their live reaction to being picked by the Indianapolis Colts and what they're hoping to see. Go ahead and go follow Drake at DWalster Drake on Twitter. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL, and we will be back Monday night, maybe, or maybe we'll be back sooner than that. If we want to talk about who the Colts take at quarterback, maybe we'll do a special episode on Friday. So make sure you follow us and follow at Colts on FN, just in case we do decide to do that. But until tomorrow night, when you guys are watching Destin and Drake live on the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel, happy draft weekend. And guys, we're almost there. Soon we will know who will be the Colts' next quarterback.